Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Rod. Good morning, everybody. My name is Tony Southern. I look after distribution UK side for Sompo Canopius. For those of you who don't know Sompo Canopius, it's a syndicate hidden over there in Lloyd's of London, run about 7th by GWP, various ways of measuring that. And I joined there about 2 years ago to help grow a UK business. And probably the key challenge and the main attraction for me to take that role was the distribution challenge. Lloyd's of London touches a lot of global business and is an exceptional platform for global business. Ironically, around about 95% of UK premium doesn't touch Lloyd's, which is a pretty staggering statistic. The UK market, again, complete the picture, as I'm sure you're all aware, is one of the most advanced in the world, second to none. If you look at the proliferation, distribution-wise, of firstly the telephone model and our friends with the red phone back in the 80s, if you look at the aggregator evolution, we have pretty much disrupted the market quicker than anywhere else in the world. Lloyd's of London, conversely, done brilliantly from a global perspective, from a UK perspective, does not have so much premium. So I was very attracted to that role in making a difference and winning business essentially from the UK market. Sompo Canopius, like many syndicates, primarily trades via a delegated underwriting model, via binders, and a technology, a process. And the challenge for me was really joining a company like that and having lots and lots of new tools at disposal, but quite a big change management challenge of convincing folk that's the right way ahead. You mentioned there the title of this little speech here about breaking records and building with sticks. Tim asked me to come and have a little chat to everybody here. I can't think of a better way to sum up INSTANDA and my need for INSTANDA than that. I suppose two key challenges. One really is about agility. There is nothing more harrowing and scary for an insurer than a lack of agility. The moment we wake up in the morning and I am feeling, the market is feeling 20% wiped off our rate before we even start work. That's quite a scary place to be. That's the market environment. The other perspective is, of course, an ability to respond to a market which is, as I say, second to none in terms of its advancement. So we are a market that changes price real time. If you can't do that as an insurer, you are at a genuine risk of picking up poor business, of mispricing business. So I've been on a bit of a journey to look and find a tool, a train set that would allow me to do that. And going back to the stick analogy, there's been fairly recent research actually by a leading MBA school that used and was looking at behavioural change, how teams work, how leaders work. And they did a really interesting experiment. They did an experiment on a group of leading MBA graduates. They stuck them in a room, and we've all no doubt been there. Gave them a pile full of sticks, gave them a task, gave them a time frame, and said, off you go. And that was it. They then did exactly the same with a group of 5 to 7-year-olds. And it was staggering what they saw. The MBA group spent a lot of time, who's going to be the time manager? How are we going to allocate tasks? What happens if? And there was quite a lot of chit-chat. The 5 to 7-year-old group, they just got on with it. They picked up sticks and they built. Some of them got it very wrong. Some of them flicked and knocked down other people's sticks. But the output in the time that was there was much, much better than the MBA group. And I couldn't sum up INSTANDA more kind of clearly than it allows you to play with sticks. It allows you to flick. And as a business leader, it allows you to get on. Now, there are all sorts of aspects to consider there, particularly in the industry we work in the regulation, in the compliance. But in an industry where traditionally the legacy providers built back years ago do not provide that, here is a platform that does. I mean, the other thing I think it's worth sharing, the part of the journey for me was being abreast of technology change, seeing and being very excited by the whole you don't need to buy it, you can rent it model. And the bit that blew me away was really following something like Amazon. And if you think Amazon probably drops annually easily a 9-figure sum investment over its lifetime, I wouldn't like to bet, but it's a big number. And today you can rent that platform, you can sell baked beans on that for $30 a month. And if you think 10 years ago, traditionally you would have gone out to all sorts of, can you design the build you want, going out, getting 3 prices, having a bit of a love-in and checking, do I know these people? It's there. And pretty much there's a lot of vanilla to any quote and buy process. Insurance is different by virtue of some of the capability we need with pricing, some of the renewal aspects. But pretty much there's a lot of vanilla there that you don't need to replicate every time. So the Amazon side of life really drew me to looking for a SaaS-based system. So what did we do? We kicked off life probably with a tougher build than you maybe would want to. And we built and delivered a direct-to-consumer household proposition. Complex because I think INSTANDA you could do in your sleep and blindfolded if it's a fairly static, this is what I want, this is the price for it. In what we were doing, we had a pretty dynamic rating tool. So the system needed to call, for example, a third-party database with 1.4 million household records in and dynamically build price. By virtue of the need to endorse proposition and product, there were dynamic elements of that needed to be built. Building that model had inbound and outbound call handlers, a CRM, a dialer, so we needed one-way integrations with those 2 platforms. So I would say it was not straightforward. And we did go out and to suit my masters, I did get prices from our legacy providers. I did get timelines from our legacy providers. And that ranged, and I'm very happy to share that, from high tens of thousands to 3-figure sums. Nothing quicker than a sort of 4-month build with a healthy health warning around that, up to no one more than 6 months, but I was fairly sure that it would end up quite a long way north of that. And that really was a bit of a challenge. I think, going back to why INSTANDA, the legacy providers we were using really didn't offer something that was quick, and that was dynamic, and that was agile. And I couldn't do my job without it, to be honest. Or I could do a job that the industry's done for some time, which is just churning out similar products in similar timeframes. So we started to build this household product. How did it go? I think at the beginning, we had too many people in the room, and I'll come on to some of the learnings. I think building on what Rod said, it was probably more of a challenge our side than the technology side. But this is working at a different pace and in a different way. I quickly cut that back to the key people we needed in the room and set a deadline. And I wasn't really sure that was a realistic deadline. I thought it was an achievable deadline. But I really felt we could do it in 35 days. And in the spirit of setting records, I'm not sure what the record is for the quickest product build, and I'm sure there are quicker ones and there are very many different products. But we did build that in 35 days. We launched it in a tradable fashion. It wasn't 100% of what we needed, but it was enough in 35 days at a fraction of the cost that the legacy providers were asking for. So, for me, that was a big success. It was a bit of a risk. There were a lot of people in the business who did not believe that was achievable. There are a lot of stakeholders out there who do not want further proliferation of platform in the business, and they want control. But it was a deliverable. From there, we went on to build 3, now 4 other products in both the direct-to-consumer space as well as the broker space, so broker portals that were mentioned earlier. And we've used it to, as I say, deploy product fairly rapidly. In a way, I would say, in the 2 years I've been where I am, probably the biggest bellwether for that is that the legacy full policy management system we've had, we've built about 3/4 of a product build in it on that time versus 4 in a year. And I think that's just a gauge of the pace you can go at. What worked well? It was very quick, so it speeds there. It was very cost effective. There is an ongoing cost, but yeah, we're very, very happy with how that went. We galvanised team through it. We got a real energy because of that. It delivered an almost psychological change to people involved in it, which was great to see. Things to be aware of, I think, moving very rapidly is very different to how many people, processes, functions are used to. And it was great to be able to parade this around the business and show a rate change in 2 minutes. The problem with being able to change a rate in 2 minutes is exactly that. And there are very strict controls and procedures that an insurance company or an MGA or a broker needs, and that needs to be in place. What else worked very well? I've talked about the speed, I've talked about the team-wise. I think there's a need for a leadership in anything that you're doing like that. It was great to see people step up in that way. At times, and in subsequent builds, there's been a bit of a drift. So it is important to get the right people in the room. Traditionally, you would have a project manager in the room, you'd have a compliance person in the room, you'd have an underwriter in the room. And this is just my experience, I'm sure this could potentially not happen with the right people. But just remember, people have a different motivation. So for an underwriter whose career is about underwriting and about proving that the right profitable book, there's a tendency to ask as many questions and gather as much information as is possible. That builds a bigger timeline into any build, and things can drift. So having somebody there who always really understands what do I absolutely have to ask, what do I necessarily not have to ask, is helpful. If you're kind of, if your judgment on this has got to be a speed thing or a cost thing. Otherwise, I can only say we've been really happy with INSTANDA. It has given us a capability we didn't have before, and has allowed us to deploy products much, much quicker than we ever have before. So free to field any questions at the end, warts and all, and outside afterwards for a coffee if anybody wants to pick up with me. Thank you.